So, Salãmun Alaykum, everyone. Today we're going to be reading from Surah 20, and we're going to continue reading verse 49. This is Surah Taha, TH. Uh, so, let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Okay, 20, verse 49. He said, "Who is your Lord, O Moses?" He said, "Our Lord is the one who granted everything its existence and its guidance." He said, "What about the past generations?" He said, "The knowledge thereof is with my Lord in a record. My Lord never errs, nor does he forget. He is the one who made the earth habitable for you and paved in it roads for you. And he sends down from the sky water, with which we produce many different kinds of plants. Eat and raise your livestock. These are sufficient proofs for those who possess intelligence." Footnote for 2054: those who possess intelligence appreciate the fact that we are astronauts who were launched into space on this spaceship Earth. God provided us with renewable food, water, pets, wildlife, and livestock as we embark on this temporary space odyssey. Compare God's provisions to spaceship Earth with the provisions we give to our astronauts. Appendix 7. From it we created you, into it we return you, and from it we bring you out once more. We showed him our paths, we showed him all our proofs, but he disbelieved and refused. He said, "Did you come here to take us out of our land with your magic, O Moses? We will surely show you similar magic. Therefore set an appointment that neither we nor you will violate in a neutral place." He said, "Your appointed time shall be the day of festivities. Let us all meet in the forenoon." Pharaoh summoned his forces, then came. Moses said to them, "Woe to you! Do you fabricate lies to fight God and thus incur his retribution? Such fabricators will surely fail." They disputed among themselves as they conferred privately. They said, "These two are no more than magicians who wish to take you out of your land with their magic and to destroy your ideal way of life. Let us agree upon one scheme and face them as a united front. The winner today will have the upper hand." They said, "O Moses, either you throw, or we will be the first to throw." He said, "You throw," whereupon their ropes and sticks appeared to him because of their magic, as if they were moving. Moses harbored some fear. We said, "Have no fear, you will prevail. Throw what you hold in your right hand, and it will swallow what they fabricated." What they fabricated is no more than the scheming of a magician. The magician's work will not succeed. The experts recognized the truth. The magicians fell prostrate, saying, "We believe in the Lord of Aaron and Moses." He said, "Did you believe with him without my permission? He must be your chief, the one who taught you magic. I will surely sever your hands and feet on alternate sides. I will crucify you on the palm trunks. You will find out which of us can inflict the worst retribution and who outlasts whom." They said, "We will not prefer you over the clear proofs that came to us, and over the one who created us. Therefore, issue whatever judgment you wish to issue. You can only rule in this lowly life. We have believed in our Lord, that he may forgive us our sins, and the magic that you forced us to perform. God is far better and everlasting. Anyone who comes to his Lord guilty will incur hell, wherein he never dies nor stays alive." As for those who come to him as believers, who led a righteous life, they attain the high ranks. The gardens of Eden beneath which rivers flow will be their abode forever. Such is the reward for those who purify themselves. We inspired Moses, lead my servants out, and strike for them a dry road across the sea. You shall not fear that you may get caught, nor shall you worry. Pharaoh pursued them with his troops, but the sea overwhelmed them, as it was destined to overwhelm them. Thus Pharaoh misled his people, he did not guide them. O children of Israel, we delivered you from your enemy, summoned you to the right side of Mount Sinai, and we sent down to you manna and quails. Eat from the good things we provided for you, and do not transgress, lest you incur my wrath. Whoever incurs my wrath has fallen. I am surely forgiving for those who repent, believe, and lead a righteous life. Repent, believe, lead a righteous life, and steadfastly remain guided. The children of Israel rebel. Why did you rush away from your people, O Moses? He said, they are close behind me. I have rushed to you, my Lord, that you may be pleased. He said, we have put your people to the test after you left, but the Samaritan misled them. Moses returned to his people, angry and disappointed, saying, O my people, did your Lord not promise you a good promise? Could you not wait? Did you want to incur wrath from your Lord? Is this why you broke your agreement with me? They said, we did not break our agreement with you on purpose, but we were loaded down with jewelry and decided to throw our loads in. This is what the Samaritan suggested. He produced for them a sculpted calf, complete with a calf sound. They said, this is your God and the God of Moses. Thus he forgot. Could they not see that it neither responded to them, nor possessed any power to harm them or benefit them? And Aaron had told them, O my people, this is a test for you. Your only Lord is the most gracious. So follow me and obey my commands. They said, we will continue to worship it until Moses comes back. Moses said, O Aaron, what is it that prevented you, when you saw them go astray, from following my orders? Have you rebelled against me? He said, O son of my mother, do not pull me by my beard and my head. I was afraid that you might say, you have divided the children of Israel and disobeyed my orders. He said, what is the matter with you, O Samaritan? He said, I saw what they could not see. I grabbed a fistful of dust from the place where the messenger stood and used it to mix into the golden calf. That is what my mind inspired me to do. Footnote for 2088 and 96. The Samaritan went to the spot where God spoke to Moses and grabbed a fistful of dust upon which God's voice had echoed. This dust, when mixed with the molten gold, caused the golden statue to acquire the sound of a calf. 97. He said, then go, and throughout your life, do not even come close. You have an appointed time for your final judgment that you can never evade. Look at your God that you used to worship. We will burn it and throw it into the sea to stay down there forever. Okay, so God willing, I'd like to stop here and go back to these verses. So, we started reading at verse 50. Verse 49, and so I'm going to go back to it. As you can see, a lot of it is, the very detailed history of, most accurate history of Moses, down to what each one of these people said in double quotes. So we have no ambiguity on the story of Moses. But God has chosen to explain these stories to us in great detail, as we can see. Um, and there is a big good reason for it. And every detail that we see, there's many lessons in all different parts of it. And um, one thing we see that Pharaoh is asking all these questions about God, and he's just being arrogant and argumentative, and um, you know this is like he doesn't. It's like he doesn't even know who God is. I mean, God is our creator, and I mean, we all are born with a natural instinct, but he Pharaoh is so arrogant that he doesn't even accept God alone as his Lord and Master, and he's asking about the past generations. And Moses' answer is the knowledge thereof is with my Lord in the record. He never errs, nor does he forget. So God knows exactly what each soul deserves, and who deserves to come at what time and what knowledge they get, and based on that where they end up. And God never makes mistakes, and God never forgets. And subhanAllah, we also see that these verses talk about the different blessings that God has given us that a lot of times, we may take for granted. And this is, that God made the earth habitable for us and paved roads in it for us. Imagine if we didn't have these roads on earth, maybe based on certain physical characteristics of earth, for example. Mm, it would be very difficult. God made it so. God made the earth habitable. He created the ideal conditions of oxygen and water and all other minerals and gases, and you know, based on several different factors that are would be unable would be like very difficult for any human being to artificially create. I mean, if we could do that, we could live on other planets, but we know that God made the earth habitable. It's the only place where we have this perfect balance that we can live. We cannot live on any other place. And God has made this earth habitable, and given us all these blessings. He sends down water from the sky to give us rain and water, and snow also we were talking about earlier. And I mean, these are all God's blessings. He sends down these things in exact measure to nourish the earth and provide us with good provisions. And it says we produce within many different kinds of plants, and all these plants, I mean, if we think about, like, they provide us with so many benefits, so many medicines and food, and amazing design of God that he has put in place, include and livestock. I mean, you make salads, you make steaks with all these provisions that God creates. I mean, these are amazing things that God has given us, and but these are also there for us to enjoy and to appreciate God, and they're also there for us to help us remember God and reflect on His omnipotence and how He creates these things. Obviously, that's why obviously when we eat these things, we should reflect on our food and how God has put this in place, and it turns our normal practice of eating food into worship and growth of our soul. And because God says these are all sufficient truths for those who possess intelligence. So, when you reflect on God's creation, I mean, of course, you will see His proofs everywhere. Um, and, eating from different kinds of plants and livestock, we do that every day. So, this would be a very good opportunity for all of us to grow our souls every day if we think about it. And especially if you look at it in light of the footnote that's mentioned here on how we have the spaceship called Earth with all these renewable provisions and reproducing astronauts. Um, I mean, you no uh, human can ever build anything like that. if they were to send something in space, for example, and, you have these reproducing astronauts, and the food is being renewed, it's renewable, you know, nobody can do that, but this is all God's power. I mean, we're traveling right now. You and I are traveling like, I don't know, some millions of miles an hour or something, uh, with the solar system and the galaxy, and it's all moving. But God's design is so perfect that we don't even feel anything. It's like, you sit in the best car, where when the car is moving, you don't feel anything. You might not even hear anything, but you still know that it's driving. But this is God's design. It's so amazing that we're moving in space so fast, with everything, but God has designed this in such a way that, it looks like everything is still, and but this is just like the example of the spaceship, Earth, subhanallah. um, and it's amazing because, we're all, it's like the humans, everything, the food, everything is being recycled, like, you know it, the same materials go back to the earth once they decompose, whether they get destroyed by fire or they get buried, whether it's plants, animals, humans, and then from the same earth, these creatures come out again in terms of, food, minerals, and of course they're eaten by other people to nourish them, so they become, creatures again. So this is all God's amazing design. All of these are proofs, because imagine if that thing was not, created by God, what would we do with all that waste, from the beginning of time to now? All of these things would just like pile over each other, and we wouldn't even have space for more people. There would be so much, clutter and waste. But this is all God's perfect design. He has created everything in a perfect balance. And if you just think about that, there would be like no atheist left on this planet, or no, every person would be a believer, not a disbeliever. But it's in accordance with God's will, obviously, that some people will disbelieve, and God leads them on in that direction, despite their knowledge. And we see that with the people of Pharaoh too. I mean, Pharaoh is there, he's seeing all these proofs, and he's blinded by his ego, that he's seeing miracles right before his eyes, and he's still disbelieving him, and he's making up lies, and telling him that he came here, to his land, uh, to take him out of his land with his magic. And I mean, he was so arrogant that he wasn't allowed to believe at the time, based on his what God knew of him. And he was fighting with Moses against God, uh, with lies, and that's what the disbelievers do. They fight God using lies that are completely ridiculous, and we can see that, like, this is what it says in 2063, for example. It says, they said, these two are no more than magicians who wish to take you out of your land with your magic and destroy your ideal way of life. Now, if you look at this statement, it's all a lie, right? These two are not magicians, they're prophets. Uh, they're not trying to take them out of the land with their magic. They have miracles from God, and they're trying to, free these people that are oppressed by this tyrant, and his uh, you know uh, army, and his forces, and the life of these people is anything but ideal. These people were slaves, and historically speaking, I mean, if you look at the amount of work that these people had to do, I mean, these people were really, really abused, and persecuted and oppressed more than most other people we know in history. Like the amount of labor they had to do. I mean, how they had to build the pyramids and all of these big monuments. I mean, they had to do a lot of really, really heavy labor, and they were treated really bad. Um, Yet, he tells them that they want to destroy your ideal way of life, whereas he's coming to help them. You know, so this is an example of how people, make up lies and twist the truth, and also these verses show how God allows the disbelievers scheming to backfire against them. Like they created a scheme, and there was this Pharaoh scheme to have everyone together and to humiliate Moses in front of everyone, and so they can easily just accomplish the assassination of Moses' character and his message by competing in magic with him. But obviously, God made their scheme backfire against them, and this allowed Moses to get the audience that God wanted him to have, and all the people who were supposed to get the message, all at once. You know, some of them were from these magicians that were experts in magic, and they saw the miracle and they recognized it and they believed because they knew that this couldn't be magic. And subhanallah, and God says that throw what you hold in your right hand and it will swallow what they fabricated. What they fabricated is no more than the scheming of magicians. The magician's work will not succeed. And then it also says, have no fear, you will prevail. Because it says Moses harbored some fear. Now, we know that fear is really a tool of the devil, And so, the devil could have, put some fear in Moses' heart, and, allowed him to um, basically, be discouraged. But, God strengthened him and told him not to have any fear, and that, whatever is, what is in his right hand, which was his staff, will swallow what they fabricated. So when he threw down his staff, it turned into a serpent, and it swallowed what they fabricated. All that stuff. And this was a great miracle for anyone, right, to see. I mean, you can't do a magic trick where something that is not a living thing becomes a living thing and starts to swallow and eat stuff, right? That couldn't be magic. And the experts, I mean, it doesn't really take an expert to recognize it, but Pharaoh couldn't recognize it. And we see his arrogance is amazing because he apparently people needed his permission to believe in God, you know, like talk about control freak. I think somebody's mic is unmuted. Um, so, that he didn't want people to believe without his permission, and how he was willing to persecute and oppress people based on their beliefs. I mean, we see that happening now too. I mean, this is no different than when people are not allowed to practice their own religion freely. And if you go to some of other countries, for example, you can face similar consequences for being a submitter. You know, to go through severe physical torture and pain for just believing in God alone. Uh, and he was challenging God's retribution with Moses and telling him that see who will outlast him. And God strengthened the faith of these magicians at the time because They said that we will not prefer you over the proof that came to us, and you can only rule in this lowly life. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to say these things to someone who has such a powerful army, and these people were just very poor and oppressed. But God, with the strength that they got and the certainty that they got from seeing these miracles, they were able to make a firm stand for God in front of Pharaoh. Uh, and you know, so, God is promising the believers that those who come to Him as believers will lead a righteous and lead a righteous life. They attain the high ranks with God, and they'll have gardens of Eden for eternity. I mean, this is a big reward for those who purify themselves, right? So, and these people knew that this was what would await them if they were to not fear Pharaoh and devote themselves to God alone. And then Moses was inspired to lead these people out and strike a dry road across the sea. And Pharaoh was, drowned, and we know the history. Um, and also, I mean, God is telling us that talking to the children of Israel, that God had bestowed all these favors upon them. He delivered them from the children of Israel, sent down manna and quails to them, given them good provisions. And God is very forgiving and merciful towards those who repent and reform. Um, and this is, it's interesting that's mentioned in the middle of the story, that God is reminding the children of Israel. So a lot of this story is to also bring the children of Israel back to the truth. Then it shows how the children of Israel, were rebellious, and they rebelled. When Moses was summoned back to God to talk to him, uh, the people were put to the test, and Sumerian was allowed to, ask the people to throw all of their jewelry, all their loads of jewelry that they had, and created a calf, and a golden calf. And his mind inspired him to mix it with the uh, dust from the ground where the messenger stood when God spoke to him, and this gave it the sound of the calf, and people started worshiping it. And that shows to us that how quickly how flimsy these humans are, that despite seeing all the miracles and the proofs, that their idolatrous tendencies are so high that they can just and they're so weak that they can slip so easily. That after seeing all these miracles and God blessing them, imagine the sea parting for you when you've seen your enemy drown, and then you come back and you start worshiping a statue. But this shows the human tendency. I mean, this might look very obvious to us, but we see other circumstances where people are very quick to, fall off God's path and drop out and start idolizing other idols. But that's exactly what the children of Israel did as well, and we see here. I mean, this is, God's put this as an example for us, that just when He was gone, I mean, while He was still alive, He wasn't even gone for like 20 years or something, but they decided to do all of this stuff. And another thing that I see here is um, that we see that when Moses was gone, these people who started worshiping idols, Aaron told them that you shouldn't be worshiping these idols. You should worship God alone and follow God and obey His orders. And then it says, uh, "Oh my son, do not pull me by my beard and my head. I was afraid that you might say you have divided the children of Israel and disobeyed my orders." So I mean, there's two ways to look at this. I mean, someone may read this statement and they might think that you know, he didn't tell them to stop because he was afraid that, they might get divided, which is one interpretation of this. And you could also look at it and see that, you know um, he's just saying that because I was afraid that you might say that to me, but obviously he did tell them not to do this. But it doesn't mean that he was afraid that he would divide the children of Israel necessarily, and that's why he didn't stop them or anything like that, because he did try to stop them. He said, "Don't do this. God is your only Lord. This is a test for you, and follow me and obey my commands." And they didn't, so obviously there is no compulsion in religion. So, I mean, he, as a messenger, told them not to worship idols, and they did. But some people look at it and say, well, um, Aaron didn't do anything because he didn't want to divide the people, which is, I guess, another way of looking at it. But anyways, um, the bottom line is that, Sumerian was the person who misled them into, worshiping this idol, and, was a hypocrite, obviously, and he was exposed this way. Um, and then we see that when he was exposed, this is what Moses said. He wasn't nice to him, he wasn't kind to him. He says, "Then go, and throughout your life do not even come close. You have an appointed time for your final judgment that you can never evade. Look at your God that you used to worship. We'll burn it and throw it into the sea to stay down there forever." Now, again, you can see that um, Sumerian wasn't exactly fighting Moses and stuff like that, but that he was, pretty harsh uh, and stern with him as much as you possibly could, and showed his disownment and animosity and hatred towards him and his actions, because he betrayed them and he betrayed God. So I would like to end it here, God willing. And if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to uh, ask them or make your comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Salãmun. Masha Allah, good Quran study.
Thank you. Anyone has any comments or questions? I think it's just a very few of us today. Some people are not in town and stuff. So if you guys have any comments, I just see Pamela, Mohammed, and Steve. Don't see anyone else. Um,
I guess only three of us.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, Adam's here too. Okay. Okay, I guess it was a great study. We can all go home.
It was a good study.
Assalamu Alaykum, guys.
Hey, Salãmun. How are you?
I've got the flu at the moment.
Oh, so I hope you feel better.
I think I don't know if I'm past the worst of it or not. Not sure. Your point about um, Aaron and Moses and about dividing the followers. I thought that was quite a good point actually, because I think I think I would interpret it, or I used to interpret it the other way, but I think you're right. Because if you look at Rashad, for example, as an example, you couldn't imagine him saying, "Oh, let's keep these people together," even though they're worshiping, right? That just, for a messenger or a prophet to do that, just out of the question. So I think how you explained it is the correct way, actually. Praise God.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I wasn't quite clear before on how these people abuse this verse, but now I sort of understand, where they're, because they say that, well, see, Aaron didn't do anything because he didn't want to divide the people, so you shouldn't
Yeah.
let them be.
And that's how I would read it, before. But
Mhm,
I think
mhm,
I can't imagine any messenger or prophet doing that, really.
mhm.
It's just out of the question, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly.
mm.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it's written like that so that people do fall into that trap and think,
Yeah,
interpret it the wrong way. I don't know.
good point, yeah. Masha Allah.
Sorry, I only caught the end of what you were reciting, so I don't know what other comments you made. But
Oh, we started from verse 49.
oh, did you? So
Yeah,
you covered quite a lot then.
yeah.
Maybe I'll quickly scan the verses and see what I can come up with.
Mhm.
If you look at verse number 96 and 97 about Samaritan, it shows that when someone heart is not in the right place and they get misguided, and even though children of Israel, they saw so much miracle, and they still end up doing, idol worshiping. So it shows that, Satan always have its representative everywhere.
Mm.
And that's the way, I look at it, that, even though they saw all these things and just Samaritan said, okay, yeah, just worship calf, and they were ready to do that.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
and
I
how he
think,
convinced everybody to do it with him. It's amazing.
Yeah.
that the danger is we read these verses and we think that that wouldn't happen today, or we won't fall into those same traps.
Yeah.
But I think really these verses are here as a warning for us. You can easily fall into these traps.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's quite astonishing, really, to think there's all these submitters in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like some have slid back after accepting the message, and obviously accepting the message. But so these verses are similar to that, right?
Yeah, I would say most instead of some.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably being polite, kind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of them, and then you have some of them that are falling for false messengers, and so many different so many different traps and tricks from Satan that he has all these traps put in place for different groups of people, to fall in idol worship one way or another.
Mm.
He has such a diverse pool of traps for people to idolize besides God. Yeah, yeah.
And I guess one of them is a lot of people sort of remaining silent and just sort of going with the flow. Because like those posts I put on Facebook recently about a couple of Rashad's videos, when you look at who liked them and who didn't like them, you can almost guess who's going to like it, who's not going to like it, and who's not going to say anything.
Yeah,
Which is
that turns
quite
into
extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly, and that turns into who likes you and who doesn't like you now because that's what you claim, proclaim.
Yeah.
So, like, if you post a status update, the same people will like your posts and
Yeah. I actually even said that to somebody the other day because they liked somebody else's comment, and I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, you like them?" So I messaged them and I said, did you really meant to like that comment? I said, I'm not telling you to like comments based on who the person who comments. You should be basing it on the content of the comment. But and actually, it was a mistake by them. but yeah, I mean, you see that all the time, and maybe I'm guilty of it, to tell you the truth. But yeah, certainly should be. I don't know. I think maybe more dangerous is the people that don't comment. Like there's a lot of submitters out there, and none of them are commenting on those posts.
Right.
So what does that say? Sitting on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these people who sit on the fence or don't say anything, they're as guilty as those who are saying those things.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But I just find it astonishing. These people accepted submission. Now they've slid back. It's just the mind boggles. I can't understand how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it another way, it's actually a sifting process that is designed by God, and it's a healthy process in which the hypocrites get weeded out, basically, because the message is gonna. I mean, imagine if all these hypocrites just stayed in, like how poisonous and like venomous would the message become if they were all not exposed and just still part of it, and we're just promoting all this stuff, but God allows them to eventually like sprout out,
Yeah. Sorry, I guess we've gone off topic a little bit in terms of the verses you covered, but
yeah. Well, no, I mean, yeah, it is very on topic with what happened. I mean, look at the people of Moses that, there were these people that, I think it's not here in this part, but, when the people who didn't want to fight for God, that ended up, Moses said, let us part company with the wicked people. And those people ended up aimlessly for 40 years.
yeah, that's quite incredible, right? That's
yeah.
disaster. I was just thinking, actually, when you started talking, I thought how Rashad said, most people that are coming to the earth have yet to come. So when I think that, I really think a lot of people read these verses, and I don't know what's in their intentions, but I don't think they really think this could happen now, or this could happen to us, or this retribution would happen if we don't do this. But really, it's more important than ever because most people haven't come to the earth yet. So, if anything, these verses are more applicable now than ever.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the difference between a believer and someone who's not a believer, because they will look at it and they'll say tales from the past, like God says, and then and they can't even access it, like they can read it, they can see the words, but they can't grasp it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. No, you're right. I don't mean maybe in terms of what you're saying. That's definitely right. But maybe I'm thinking maybe I observed that actually.
Yeah, of course. God says none can grasp it except the sincere. So that's sure. And God says that those who do not believe in the hereafter, like we place a barrier, so that they as if they're being addressed from far away. So
yeah.
Sometimes kind of amazes us that you're reading the same verse and you have completely different perception of the same verse, and you wonder how, but yeah, that's a proof that when God shows you the certain meaning, that understanding, and someone cannot see it, and that's a proof that. And you can see that one, that they cannot see it. It doesn't matter how much you try. They just can't see it.
yeah.
And even though they claim to know maybe Arabic, right? Their mother tongue could be Arabic. And I think that's where even bigger challenges come in, that their ego gets in the way. My mother tongue is Arabic, so you are telling me that I don't understand, right?
Yeah.
So that, and I have seen that one every time. I was, wow. And we're reading the same verse.
Yeah, I mean, look at the example of Pharaoh here, right? Same thing. He's seeing the proofs, but his ego is not allowing him to accept the truth. It's the same thing. There's a Pharaoh and people.
Yeah. There's the story of Moses and so many places in the Quran that's being repeated, and God knows there that we will be like that, Moses people, right? As and I guess traditional Muslims, when they read this, they think, okay, this is just a story, and it does not apply to us. God has a reason to put so many times the same story throughout the Quran. And every time you talk to them, say, no, this is the only Moses time. They just think it's just old stories. That's all.
Yeah.
So there is a lesson, lesson for this story.
Yeah. Yeah, so many lessons in all of these stories. That I mean, like I see the most detailed stories in the Quran are Moses and Joseph, and both of these stories are so. I mean, they're filled with so many lessons. Every time you read them, you discover new information. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think one consistent message we see in all of these stories all the time is, God always grants victory to the believers. If you stick with the truth, if you stick with God, despite the social pressure and everything, um, God will make you victorious. God will grant you success. And any schemes that the disbelievers and the hypocrites scheme, their schemes will backfire against them. They'll end up exposing themselves and, end up being losers. This is what we see here in the story of, Pharaoh also. We see his schemes twice, and both times it backfires on him. First with um Moses, getting all these expert on his side, and then the second time with him and his forces, being drowned. And so many other examples from him. Also like when he tried to, you know, slaughter the sons of the children of Israel. He ended up raising one of them in his own house, to his enemy later on. So,
Yeah, that's true actually.
mhm.
My auntie in Singapore who translated the Quran to Malay, she said there was a guy from Scandinavia, I think maybe Sweden, I'm not sure exactly, and he critiqued the mathematical miracle, and it was all pretty convincing, his critique of it, in a negative sense. And I guess people would have um, been misled by what he said. But my auntie said then, after a while, nothing was heard of him. So that's another example that God, God's system is that He allows Satan to interfere,
Mhm.
but the truth will always prevail in the end.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I guess the interfering is to let the doubters drop out.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Even if we look at the verse number 90 and 91, and it says, and Aaron had told them, O my people, this is a test for you. Your only Lord is the most gracious. So follow me and obey my commands. And they said, we will continue to worship it until Moses comes back. So it's also sure that how God put them to test, and He's telling them this is a test,
Mhm.
and still,
Mhm.
and they just saw right before that,
Mhm.
um, the sea got parted for them, and still they could not believe Aaron.
Right. Yeah.
It just to show that who has certain diseases in their heart, God will expose them.
Yeah. Also, if you look at Samarian and how, this idea came into his mind, it says, my mind inspired me. But it really, it was from Satan. This idea,
Yep.
was a satanic idea that came into his mind. Uh, Probably a whisper from the devil. Because how would he know that, using this dust will make these sounds?
Yeah, exactly.
And the interesting part is when you build something like a calf or so, if you're righteous, you would think that why am I doing that one? Where it's coming from, right? To build something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even nowadays, when some people they talk about they're getting inspiration of something, you really have to kind of question like where that inspiration is coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we know that God is the source of all knowledge when it comes to, things like science and inventions and all of these things, in the universe. God is the source of all this knowledge, but obviously these types of ideas, the bad ideas, come from Satan.
Mm.
And but there is still also that is in accordance with God's will.
Yeah.
All these inventions and things like that, I mean, God is the source of all knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point, actually. I guess if you were inspired to make a calf and grab the sand that gave it a sound, you would, yeah, if you were righteous or you were having good thoughts, then you'd be asking, why am I doing this?
Yeah, actually, the verse I was referring to is 1785. Divine revelation, the source of all knowledge. They ask you about the revelation, say the revelation comes from my Lord. The knowledge given to you is minute. So I think it's based on the part that says the knowledge given to you is minute. So, God has given us the knowledge.
Salãmun Alaykum.
Assalamu Alaykum.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Praise God.
How are you doing?
I praise God.
Except for Steve, you're all doing good.
I thought
Masha
I'd time my cough well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at work, so I was driving. I was just sort of listening to you guys. I got a few minutes to talk, and then I gotta run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Running is good.
Go ahead.
Running is good.
Sorry, go ahead, Adam. I don't think Adam laughed at that joke. It's good that you could join us because there's not many of us. So.
Yeah, Masha Allah, yes. And mostly I'll probably be listening through my headphones. So but yeah, I totally agree with this part that it's pretty scary. Just becoming a submitter and you thinking everything is done, and no, it's a continuous battle until our time is up. So every day, we should try to work on our ego to see is it still, it's like if you kill an animal, you see it's still moving around or not. You see, gotta focus on our ego and keep remembering the verse 23, 97, and 98, and just praying to God. And I don't know what's that verse is that in Surah 3 is it verse number 8? It says, I know the Arabic, Rabbana Zalamna, no, what is that verse? Where it says that after you have blessed us with guidance, don't make our hearts go astray. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. So that's a very powerful dua that you praying to God that after you have guided us, please don't make us go astray, and that is very important. And so you never know. Sometimes the ego kicks in and we think that we are very righteous and this and that. Remember that we were discussing in the messenger, not the messenger app. the person that I used to listen to his speeches on YouTube, comes to find out that, what you guys are saying, that it's become a claimed messengership, and things can happen once your ego kicks in so much and you start being proud of yourself. And that is so I try to tie myself to this verse 479, that anything that good happens to us is from God. So I keep putting that projection towards God. Anything good's coming to me or happening to me, just saying thanks to God. And so it's every day just praying to God that keep us on the right path, as we say in 17 times a day, guide us to the right path. Masha Allah.
So you used to listen to his speeches? You didn't know he was astray?
No. It's when I became a submitter. I at that time I was just a newbie, gullible, just that's it, But as soon as I started learning about all this stuff, I was like, when I remember I came to San Jose in 2017 with my family. I still that time I was just gullible. Oh, okay, yeah, beautiful. But slowly started learning, and I saw a little discussion when I was in the Quran study with you guys over there in 2017, and there was some little issue going on, and I told my wife that just drop that. We are here, and these people are God loving, only God alone people. That is important to me. Even any religion person, even a Hindu or Christian, comes to me and says, I only worship God alone, and I mean, I have no objection to this person. If this person have no idol in his life, so these are actually submitters. So they are worshiping God alone. So that time it was just my learning experience. I ignore all the negativity on the side and just keep going straight. So this thing will affect us time to time. I think you meet people, thing will happen. So. At the end of the day, we are responsible for ourselves. We're not responsible for anybody. Even messengers were responsible for themselves and not anybody else.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have to learn with experience, and until we get that experience and certain qualities of certain beliefs are exposed, I mean, you're not going to be able to know, right? I mean, on the surface, I mean, that's why, there is a saying that everything that glitters is not gold. But, but you have to study it to know what's gold and what isn't.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've watched some of his videos. I guess I haven't watched all of them, but the ones I have watched, I was quite impressed with them actually. I thought, oh wow, this guy, he's advocating Russia as a messenger.
Yeah.
He's got all these numbers about the US, and I think Declaration of Independence or whatever. I was like, wow, this is impressive. It was just quite interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was a bit surprised actually when you said he claimed himself to be a messenger, but then when I went to their website, I was like, oh, he did.
Yeah, I think I never studied anything he said because I was already told he claimed he's a messenger, so I never really studied any of his stuff. But I can see, like, when I see like people just throwing out numbers like in excess, where you can't understand the pattern, like something's wrong.
Well, I think actually I probably learned that lesson this year. When the fake messenger from during Ramadan, and that was one of the arguments I had, that we can come up with a lot of numbers from these verses, but those sorts of numbers, unless they're coming from the messenger, I guess this is my personal opinion, so you don't tell me if I'm wrong, but unless they're coming from the messenger, those numbers that we get from different verses, like there's one Quran study that I joined, and there's one girl in there, and she can come up with numbers for every verse. I call her the human calculator.
Right.
But they're more reassurances for us, and that's all they should be taken as, reassurances, because they're not physical evidence. Because that,
right.
Are
you talking about the female messenger?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not talking about her in terms of the human calculator. There's another submitter. In the Quran study, people will be reading different verses, and she'll come up with different numbers. It's like, wow, this is amazing, and it's pretty impressive actually. But that's quite different from physical evidence. Although Rashad comes up with numbers from verses 2, but he's a messenger, so that's different again, I think, So I think you have to make that distinction.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that whether you're a messenger or not, I mean, there are numbers there, and there's going to be many more, like, of these same numbers that are present, Then, I mean, he didn't have to point each and every one of them, but we're going to continue to see them. But I think once people start declaring messengership and stuff, then that, the source of it is all wrong. And obviously then the moment they declare messengership, they can no longer carry on with the truth. They're no longer guided. So then they clearly veer off the path. I mean, they're not going to support the messengers' counts. They're gonna create their own patterns, and they're gonna create their own systems and stuff like that. That's what I've seen. So they're not gonna reconfirm everything the messenger has said. Basically, they're gonna come up with stuff that the messenger has said, which according to them the messenger was wrong and stuff like that, which contradicts God's system with God sending messengers and then sending other messengers to correct the previous messengers. It's like God cannot make up his mind in between what to send and what not to send. Like he keeps canceling his own message and changing it,
But you make a good point, actually. I guess as soon as you declare you're a messenger, then you're veering off the path, aren't you? That's the fork in the road.
Yeah, some people even end up taking off their clothes, for example.
There's only messengers coming to Australia for Australia. That's understandable.
It's hard.
In Australia, that's pretty normal, probably. Still can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, you witnessed a miracle.
Yeah, I'd rather just see the golden calf, I think. The sound. It would have been better. Maybe we should throw him into the sea. I guess I was protected in some ways because I didn't really look at the screen much, because I thought, this is a bit embarrassing for him. He's got no top on, so I didn't really look too much. And then, oh well, not only has he got no top on, haven't heard from him since then. But yeah, I don't know. I've said this to a couple of people. I might have said it to you even, Solomon. That I think, especially for guys, there's probably a tendency when you first come into submission to think you're going to discover some mathematical thing, maybe some new multiples of 19, and then at least for me, after a while, you realize, oh no. Probably because I'm not a good enough person for one reason, and then you realize, God knows who to send as a messenger, and not everybody's going to be messengers. And but I think ego does play. Sorry, I've got to hang up and take a call. I'll join back.
Okay.
Yeah, see, the purpose of these miracles are to prove, like for the Quran, the miracle of 19 is to prove that this is the word of God. And it has been already proven by this kind of miracle. Every word of it has been proven. There may be more 19 fractions hidden in there, but we have far more than enough evidence with the miracle of 19 that this is the word of God. If one claims to have some valid proof, they should, come up with something that proves them that they're a messenger of God. First of all, their message. When I heard about a Shah Khalifa a long time ago, I was shocked because I came from traditional culture, and I'm like, what is going on? I didn't even know about submission at all. That it exists. I was just reading the regular Quran, and I found all the red flags. First one was when God says that you shall not make any distinguish between the messengers and prophets, 4 places. Second last verse from Surah 2, number 2. So I would go and talk to regular people that I used to, hang out with, and they would say, oh, that means that we should believe on every one of them. We cannot say that we believe on this and believe on that. And my argument with them was that, well, it doesn't say that. It says in one of the next surah that one community was making distinguish between believing in one and not. But other than that, I think it's Surah 12, 13, or 14 somewhere it says that. But other than that, there's no mention of anything. It just says that you shall not make any distinguish. So, and I would give that example, like you have, if you adopt 2 kids and you don't have any kids before, and all of a sudden God blesses you and give you 2 kids or 1 kid, and this this place where you adopted those kids, they come to you, they said, now that you have kids, so because they want to make sure that all kids are treated equally. So if they tell you, you shall treat all your kids equally. No, this is common sense. You're not going to ask them, what do you mean by equally? It's very common sense that you love them equally, you take care of them, and you give them if you celebrate one's birthday, you got to celebrate everyone. So it's a very common sense. So why are you telling me that why are we putting one prophet above the other? When Moses is mentioned more than anybody else, and when God says he made him for himself, and when God made Prophet Abraham his beloved friend. So we are not to make distinction, even though God says that God have blessed one messenger above the other, but for us, it's a commandment that we believe in them equally. That was my first red flag. And there are many more follow. And when I come to the voodoo, and I said, this is what God says. How can you blasphemy say that? That prophet has added steps into it. Why would he disobey God? You are saying that he was disobeying God because he's adding more steps. If God tells us, this is the formula that God is teaching us in the chapter 2, in the same verse, second last word, God said, they say that we hear and we obey. We don't ask questions. So this was my objection. So, Masha Allah, this was guidance from God, that God shows you black and white in easy steps, and you still ignore. Like God showed me that there's no distinguish, and Masha Allah, God made me accept it, and God will show you more proofs for you to believe. But if you keep on rejecting God's signs and keep on following, even though your heart is telling you this is wrong, but you keep on believing what you've been hearing from your elders and what your society, what your community, even though your heart is keep on telling you this is wrong, then you will be going on that path. And so when I learned about Rashad Khalifa, I was shocked because I didn't even expect it that anybody can even claim. And before, when I learned about him, I was just reading his topics and listening to his audio and videos. And all I can see was that, oh my God, I found a person who worships God alone. I've been searching for somebody to at least say that I worship God alone. So I instantly fell in love with that guy.
What happened? I think he dropped his phone or something.
Yeah, I thought I did something to my phone, but now I can't hear me.
Yeah. I heard something fall down. Maybe he fell down the stairs or something.
I was plugging in. I was plugging in my charger, and I realized my mic was on, so it might have been sad.
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
I hope he didn't fall down in his stairs. Wow. Don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I might have to leave suddenly again if my manager calls me, but in the meantime, I'm available.
Okay. I think
I got disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my whole point was that accepting him based on his all these proofs and signs and everything was. But if all these people are there, what are they doing? Is just horrible. It's horrible. One after another, I'm listening, hearing. This person is claiming, that person is claiming. It's just horrible. It's just making mockery of God's religion.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
it
this
is.
is one of Satan's tricks is to just flood the people with these false messengers.
Yeah. What they don't realize is, I mean, this is very serious business. If you are a messenger, that's good. But if somebody claims and this person is not, that's a very, very dangerous position to be.
Of course, yes.
Right? I mean, you are really, you're ardent opponent of God, probably, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, fabricating.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically lying about God, right? If you're doing that.
Right.
And actually, I think my brother made a comment a while back to me.
Sorry.
I think my brother made a comment to me a while back. I don't know. I can hear a lot of noise.
Okay,
I don't know if you can hear me.
I muted Adam, so I think his feedback coming from his.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My brother made a comment recently, or a while back, and he sort of said, I can't remember exactly what he said in the comment, but it was something along the lines of, nobody else has refuted anything that Rashad revealed since his death, right? And I was sort of thinking the other day, has there been much progress in terms of submission since Rashad died, in terms of the knowledge that we have about submission? Or
What do you mean, like from mathematical standpoint?
Maybe not necessarily mathematical, but maybe any further understanding that has been discovered in the Quran. For example, like how righteous people die and go straight to heaven. Has there been any other revelations?
No, I mean, you can't. Like, I think God has. I mean, like, for that, like, I feel that God will send messengers to give this type of revelations. These are revelations from God, that are hidden inside the Quran, and God allows to send a messenger at a certain time to reveal a messenger who extracts this new information. So I don't think any of us is actually capable of doing that. But I mean, we still get our own daily messages from when we read the Quran and stuff like that, But if you thought you found something, I mean,
no,
no,
just to make that clear.
no, not you. I don't mean literally you, but I mean, like, if you thought like you found something, like, I would be so scared to share it with people, because I'm what if I'm wrong, sort of a thing, but I mean, for things like that, I mean, you can't really be absolutely sure, so this is just a tough thing, but I mean, we have everything we need in the Quran in general, and we know that everything that's not in the Quran, we're not supposed to follow it, and but I think other things, like, for example, things like the end of the world, like, there's end of the worlds, right? That's a good example, actually. That's a good question. So end of the world is revealed by the messenger of the covenant. Now another person comes and he says, I'm not a messenger, but I'm here to tell you that the end of the world is going to be on this date, on this day, at this hour and this second, and then that, and you're not a messenger, and you have no way of knowing, and you just provide a bunch of numbers, do a statistical analysis on the numbers, and
I was meant to double check those numbers actually for him. I know who you're talking about.
Right.
Still haven't done that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. Continue.
So that's all guesswork.
Mm.
And if you're not a messenger, I mean, for sure, like, chances are you're lying.
Well, the impression I get is that there hasn't really been progress since Rashad died, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
goes,
I mean,
it's in line with what you're saying, he's a messenger,
yeah.
we're not messengers, which makes more reason to follow his message, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
listen to his message, and yet these people
Yeah.
are disregarding his message.
Yeah, I think the progress should come from the people, progressing as submitters.
Yeah,
You know.
definitely, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, like on an individual basis, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
I think that's more important, your personal growth as opposed to, to look for whether there is advancement after Rashad. I think if we kind of look at the history, all the prophets and messenger after they died, the people actually went more often backward, right?
Yeah, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And we have now audios and videos from the messenger of the covenant, and it's still you have so much doubts.
Yeah, I know. We're extremely blessed that any time of the day or night we can listen to the messenger directly. No other generation that had that ability.
Yeah.
Unless, I would have had to been in Tucson when he was alive to listen to him previously. But now we have this ability, and yet it's people disregard all that stuff. It's quite astonishing. Sorry, I think I interrupted you, Mohammed.
No. I that was my point. It's I guess we need to focus on our own soul growth, right? As opposed to what the messengers done. Messenger did his job. It's our responsibility now. Whether we're following the message he came with, and when we look at it, the social media. And I think, how can you go wrong? You have all the information, and it's like so much doubts, and I find that people there are taking words and trying to make different meaning out of it. And so all the information is there. Where is the confusion? So and then when you kind of look back at the history, all the messengers, I mean, after they died, people went back actually backward, not they didn't move forward. And I think that the history repeats itself, right?
Yeah.
Even though here we have all this information, still people have different doubts and different questions.
Yeah, I guess that's what I find quite astonishing. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I am, It's like, wow, these people actually accepted submission. And now they seem to be sliding backwards.
Sorry. No, actually, I was going to say that, and now you see a lot more messengership because of social media, I guess. Before social media, people really couldn't claim, and people didn't know much. I guess now we know more.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Well, I think also another thing is, people were probably afraid to claim messengership in real life, but in social media, behind the computer, I think it's a lot easier.
I'm going to put that to the test. Yeah, I guess you're right, actually. I mean, a lot of people will do things online behind a computer screen that they wouldn't do in person.
I guess I'm gonna log off. We can continue. We're gonna go to bed soon.
Okay, thank you for joining, guys. I think I'm also gonna log off. So, for those of us who joined us on YouTube, thank you for joining. God willing, our next study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30 Pacific time, and our teacher is going to be Nusrat, God willing, and we'll see you guys then. God bless you guys. Salāmun Alaykum.